It is November 7th, 2023, and here we go. NXT. I think it's just me tonight. Welcome to the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Issa is out for a couple days. I am holding it down. Maybe I have a co-host showing up. Who knows? Life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone. And that includes myself, Glenn Rubenstein, here tonight, hanging out with the chat, talking about NXT. We had some big news today in the world of NXT, which is why it's critical that we do this show tonight. So I'm going to be recapping the show, talking about the news, taking your cues, giving my A's, and hanging out with the chat tonight. It's going to be different. You know, I've been doing this podcast now for 7 years, 7 complete years, entering well into my 8th year. And yeah, I think this is the first time I've ever done it alone. This is kind of exciting, kind of scary. Bear with me. Let's try and have a good time. And it is good to see you all. Thanks everyone for hanging out tonight. Baby Ice, Alicia A, Ricky Zaldivar, Killer of Demons, Corey Pride, Mike Rouse, the Professor and Marianne here on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. So let's talk about the huge news, which is WWE has announced a brand new broadcast home for NXT in September of 2024. NXT is going to the CW network. Broadcast television. WWE is touting that they have gotten a huge rights increase. People are speculating it's in the neighborhood of $30 to $37 million a year. Big increase in the rights. I think they're getting 15 to 20 now from the USA Network. Of course, USA spent their entire wrestling budget luring SmackDown away from Fox, bringing that over to the USA Network starting the same year. And the C-Dub is going to be the new home to NXT. Tonight we had an overrun, and enjoy that while it lasts, because as you all know, the CW has a hard out at 10 p.m. for local news, which means we're going to get a tight 2 hours of developmental wrestling on NXT once it comes over to the CW. It's going to be exciting. I posited this question on Twitter, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on SmackDown. If you want to watch that live on the East Coast and you're a West Coast viewer, you can watch that on the Fox Sports app. If you have the USA Network, many cable providers, including DirecTV, offer the East Coast feed to West Coast subscribers. Same with AEW for all of its programming on TNT and TBS. My question is, what is this going to mean for NXT ratings if fans on the West Coast don't want to wait for that rebroadcast and resort to less than legal means to watch NXT? I know, for one, because I cover it and because I'm a huge NXT fan, I don't want to wait until 8 o'clock West Coast time. I want to watch this at 5 p.m. West Coast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, and check out what's going on my favorite wrestling promotion, NXT. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the ratings there. I would love to get thoughts, and I love the jokes people are making. Hopefully, Baby Ice saying, hopefully we get Dawson's Creek reruns after NXT. David Coffey, Private Party at 5. Maybe Buffy will be the new NXT Women's Champion. They'll take it back old school to the CW, back when it was the WWB and then the UPN that merged together. Maybe we'll see a reboot of The Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer. Who knows? Anything can happen. Life is unpredictable. But I'm excited about this. This is big for NXT, and it shows that what they've done with stacking NXT week in and week out with main roster talent has really paid off in boosting the ratings to the point where the CW is paying quite a premium over what USA Network was paying for the show. And I think it's exciting. I think NXT deserves the largest audience possible. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see, USA can't bury the show for its last year because they do need to keep that relationship with WWE due to SmackDown. WWE stock slightly up after hours. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We know that WWE stock after the SmackDown deal was announced with USA, WWE stock actually through TKO, its new symbol, actually took a bit of a hit. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Additionally, as Gary Nails is pointing out, it had been rumored that Billy Corgan's NWA, which is really funny if you think about that musically, the dude from Smashing Pumpkins, his NWA, but his wrestling promotion, the National Wrestling Alliance, it was rumored that they were going to be working with the CW, and perhaps a recent spot they did that featured drugs cost them that deal. Of course, this is all gossip, but the real hard news story, as reported on the Wrestling Inc. website, is that WWE has made it official with the CW. So we'll see what happens, man. I think this is very, very, very exciting. Let's also talk about another news story. I want to give a congratulations to Road Dogg, of course, who works in WWE, and said, today marks 13 years that he's been clean of drugs and alcohol. My life is 100% better. I've learned to look inward and make course corrections and improvements as I go. I ain't perfect, but he is. I believe, point up when you say the he. It's capital H, capital E. I'll continue to listen to that still small voice. Thank you, God. Congratulations, Road Dogg, on 13 years of sobriety. That's a hell of an achievement. And glad you are doing well. So let's talk a little bit about NXT tonight. So this was a very, very interesting show in that we have Deadline coming up a month from now. And this was the start of a build. There was a lot of very good wrestling on NXT tonight. I actually felt like we got some big story moments. We saw a Joe Gacy promo that teased what's going on with him. We got some major developments in the world of Chase U as JC Jane intercepted a letter meant for Andre Chase, delivered by the D'Angelo family, which it's nice to see it's growing and expanding. And then, of course, at the end of the show, we had further developments with Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, complicated by one Lexus King getting involved. So, Deadline, a month away. We've got all these Iron Survivor qualifying matches going on. We had Mick Foley coming back tonight. We have Legends coming back to announce these different matchups. And it's exciting. It's truly a new era in NXT as we're going to see this build towards Deadline, this build into 2024. We heard from Lyra Valkyria, our new women's champion, and got a taste of what's to come in her storyline. We saw a lot of things happen. I think it's a bit of a slow start, but a start nonetheless. And of course, it might be like when you turn on that gas range, it takes a little while for things to simmer and then boil. So let's talk about tonight. We had a banger of a match tonight opening the show. Noam Dar versus Akira Tozawa. Noam Dar defending his NXT Heritage Cup. Now, with the rules of this match and the points and the ties, this match lasted 25 minutes. It was actually very interesting. It started, of course, at 0-0. Then Dar scored the first point. And then at the end of round 3, it was still Dar in the lead. Tozawa tied in round 4. And in round 5, Dar got his second point and won, and leading to Oro Mensah getting in Akira Tozawa's face. Maxine Dupree was there with Chad Gable and Otis cheering on Tozawa and having his back. It was a very interesting match, and I'm curious for everyone in the chat tonight, did you pop for Otis and Gable and Maxine Dupree returning to NXT? It seemed like the crowd was really into it. And, I don't watch Raw. I do like to take my Mondays off. Last night, I watched the original Iron Man again. I've been listening to a really good audiobook about the history of the MCU. It's like 16 hours long. And I was sitting down last night and I said, hearing the stories about Iron Man, they didn't have a script. Timothy Olyphant was almost Tony Stark. They had to extensively redo the third act. I said, you know what? I want to watch the first Iron Man all over again. Watched it. It was very nice. Just take a little break from wrestling and enjoy that. And then we were flipping channels on cable and Say Anything was on. So we ended up watching that. And I'm excited for the Marvels this weekend. Big post-credit scene that's supposed to tie in some legacy Marvel characters making their first appearance in the MCU. So last night, I did not watch Raw, but I'll tell you, Otis seems over as ever. Gable, I think the shush thing is silly, better than Shorty G, but it's nice to see that he's got a gimmick that's over. I mean, I think people forget, well, certainly the NXT audience remembers, Chad Gable is like one of the best technical wrestlers in the entire world. Well, they did set up War Games last night. Here's now my thing about War Games. Is it the Bloodline versus Judgment Day? Because if not, anything else is a disappointment. You can't get me interested in anything else. But this match tonight, I think, was good. Noam Dar and the Metaphor, a delight as always. And I'm getting the DMs rolling in, by the way, because before I went on the air, I DM'd some other Wrestling Inc. hosts and was like, hey, are you around? Because I'm going to do this by myself for the first time in 7 years. And no one is coming to save me. It's just me, myself, and my microphone, and you, the audience, tuning in. So, I really like this opening match. This was some good hard-hitting wrestling action, and it set the stage for Gable and Otis and Maxine Dupree. Maxine Dupree and Otis, great pairing. Had a lot of chemistry. We went from that segment to Lyra Valkyria talking about meeting and defeating her hero, Becky Lynch, and she was interrupted by Xia Li. So this is really interesting because from what I understand, Xia and Becky Lynch had an interaction in the number one contenders women's world championship battle royal last night on Raw. And so having Xia Li be Lyra's first challenger, I think is going to be quite good. I think she's going to put good competition up. I think it's going to be a hell of a match. And it's going to be really exciting. I think Lyra, though, I'm curious what everyone else thought of her promo. I think she did okay on the mic tonight, but she does not quite have the gravitas, as it were, that we have seen with some NXT women's champions. I think she'll grow into it, and it is sort of a reminder that NXT is still a developmental territory, but I think that this feud with Xia Li should give her something to further develop her character. It's interesting, Corey Pride saying Roxanne Perez should still be champ. I feel like with the NXT women's division, since Mandy Rose left, I feel like they've literally been just trying out champions and saying, okay, we're going to try this for a little bit. And if it works, we'll keep you as champion. And if not, we'll give it to someone else. But sooner rather than later, they're going to find the women's champion that's just right for the NXT brand and figure out who's going to be able to hold that title for a very long time. Interesting, though, after 2 weeks, that we did not see Jade Cargill on NXT last week or this week. So I think Jade perhaps not debuting in NXT. I think we can this is a safe bet. JC Collins saying that she thinks Lyra did great tonight. I thought it was good. I'm just saying this wasn't the best promo that I've seen on NXT, but in fairness, NXT has a lot of promos that feel like good for developmental, maybe sometimes great for developmental, but I think we've been spoiled that sometimes we have these champions or characters that are just able to come out and knock it out of the park. You know? So after that, Tiffany Stratton made her way down to the ring, and we saw backstage Alpha Academy running into Drew Gulak, Charlie Dempsey, Damon Kemp, and Miles Bourne that would set up a match for later tonight between Gulak and Otis. Then Tiffany Stratton took on Fallon Henley in a qualifier match for the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. It's funny, here's my rhythm. I was just about to say, what did you think of the match? Actually, we could do this as sort of audience participation. Wrestling Inc. audience, you are my virtual co-host for tonight. I'm going to be silent. You give your opinion, and it'll be like you are hosting the show with me. Audience, my virtual co-host, what did you think of the match of Fallon Henley versus Tiffany Stratton? Yeah, it's a valid point. I think that's good. I mean, do you think Fallon perhaps should have won? I see your argument. I understand what you're saying. I think that, Fallon has definitely improved, and she put on a good match with Tiffany Stratton tonight. But I think with Tiffany Stratton, even though she's not the women's champion anymore, they still are very high on her and are giving her these opportunities. So, and she could very well win that Iron Survivor match at Deadline. I wouldn't be surprised, but I enjoyed this match tonight. Of course, she won with the prettiest moonsault, and it was good. We went backstage. We saw Wes Lee excited to be back. He had a list of the people that he wanted to, that he wants to wrestle, and I liked Baron Corbin. I enjoyed Baron Corbin being a troll. Speaking of Baron Corbin, the other day I do a podcast with Raj Giri and Matt Morgan called Gigantic Pop, available on YouTube. And Raj Giri had never seen Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport before. So Raj had tweeted that out and said, we're going to talk about Gigantic Pop. And Baron Corbin, the lone wolf himself, Mr. Burn the Ships, said, wait, hold up a minute. You've never seen Bloodsport? I know, embarrassing. He used to own a wrestling site, this very site about combat sports. Perhaps that's why he sold it, because he was so ashamed and felt unqualified because he'd never seen Bloodsport. But check out Gigantic Pop to learn more about what he thought about the film. And we talk about that and a lot more. But Wesley and Baron Corbin trolling Wesley, being like, oh, you're back. No one's excited. I really like that. I think Baron Corbin being Buzzkill Corbin, that's good. Somebody write that down. Somebody trademark that. Somebody send that to Shawn Michaels. He has me blocked on Twitter along with William Shatner. Long story. Buzzkill Corbin. I think that's his new, forget bum-ass Corbin. Buzzkill Corbin is where it's at. I'm really liking this character that he's portraying currently. So that was fun. It was very, very fun. Nice to see him and Wesley. And then we had Bron Breakker versus Von Wagner, which I got to be honest, this felt kind of buried within the show, right? But given the match that Baron and Bron had before, how rough and how physical it was, they've had some main event matches. They've really been given the spotlight and showcase. This was there. I know it was near an hour break, I believe, but it just kind of felt thrown in there that after Mr. Stone defended Von's honor and challenged Bron Breakker at the second night of Halloween Havoc, having Bron and Von Wagner face off again, I thought was kind of a repetitive choice, but I understand where they're going with the storyline. It's interesting, though, what they did in the finish. And if you want to understand WWE booking, especially NXT booking, look at what they did with the final of this, where Bron Breakker beat Von Wagner. So Bron looks strong. Aha! But then Mr. Stone hit Bron Breakker, distracting him, allowing Von Wagner to pick him up and powerbomb him through the announce desk. So everybody looked strong at the end of this match. And that is WWE in a nutshell. They don't want to pick winners. They don't want to pick losers. Everyone's a winner. Everyone gets a participation trophy. Everyone looks strong. That's often what NXT does with talent that they're so invested in, and they want to build up so much that it's not that they always have to win. They're afraid to have them look lesser because they need to keep their streak, their power, their momentum. So I thought that was an interesting choice for how they dealt with this tonight. But it makes sense. But I think they need to move on from this feud. I think Von Wagner had a lot of momentum. They gave him this story that whether you love it or you hate it or you're just lukewarm on it, which I kind of am, they're giving him character development. I think his bond with Mr. Stone has actually gotten a lot stronger, which has been very interesting. But with Bron Breakker, I mean, I said before, he's starting to feel like a fifth-year senior. Now he's feeling like a seventh-year senior. Like, dude, when are you going to graduate? Alicia A saying, I feel like Bron's really went backwards from where he was at one point. Bron was like the hottest dude in NXT. Everyone was like, oh, he's destined for the main roster. He's destined for WrestleMania. As Corey Pride is saying, Bron needs to be on the main roster by the Royal Rumble. I agree. Like, this is just getting weird at this point. In fact, I think it hurts the Lexus Kings of the world if you've got your former star quarterback repeating, remedial English for the fifth time, and you bring in the new hotshot Lexus King. Like, let Bron go on to greener pastures, man. Let him go on to the main roster. They got to do something here because it's just getting a little repetitive. What is left for him to do in NXT except maybe beat up HBK? I don't know. He did, they did crash. We've seen him get very physical in the other things he's done in NXT. So I think it's time for him to get out of here and go to the main roster, as Ricky Zaldivar agrees. So Lola Vice and Elektra Lopez took on Roxanne Perez and Kalani Jordan. Now, of course, Lola Vice won the NXT breakout tournament. It was great to see her tonight. She's looking like $1 million. But it's interesting that she has that breakout contract, right? Which should be advancing her as a single star. And yet she's in this tag match. And then Roxanne Perez and Kalani Jordan, as a makeshift tag team, I think they were fine. I actually think what stole the show in this match was Ariana Grace as Miss NXT, which I actually really love that character. It's super cheesy. It seems older than old school that she's coming out wearing the sash and the crown. She's taking an announcer job. She's congratulating people, saying everyone's a winner. But then, of course, the big setup at the end of this was that Ariana Grace, Miss NXT, got clocked from behind by Carmen Petrovich. So I think that this was fun. This was a fun match and a fun finish. And Ariana Grace has a fun gimmick. So that was good. We got a cryptic message from Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy, who I might be related to because his shoot last name is a variation of mine. Maybe that was his cryptic promo. He's going to reveal that. No, probably not that. But it's being cryptic. He's getting a bit of a reboot. I think what we all want to know, though, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. What's going on with Ava Raine? Because maybe they're repackaging her. Maybe they're giving her a chance to develop a little more before she starts competing in singles competition in the women's division. But I think Ava Raine, I mean, given her lineage, her heritage, where she comes from, clearly they're very invested in her. I think she's got a lot of potential. I think she was really fun in the Schism. So we'll see what this means for Gacy. I'd like him to go back to his original character, which was so obnoxious it was entertaining. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, that's Baby I think she's headed to the Bloodline for WrestleMania season. Look, I get it wrong a lot with my predictions, but it's fun to speculate. This is part of being a comic book fan. This is part of being a wrestling fan. Marvel literally had a series called What If? And the idea is you want to think about, what if this happened? What if this happened? And look, I know you all give me a lot of credit because at one time I predicted that Charlotte was going to take the title off Asuka to make the WrestleMania three-way between Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte be for SmackDown and Raw Women's titles. And you all were like, oh my God, Glenn's a genius. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. But the beautiful thing about making wild predictions about the future is you're right maybe 1 out of 10 times, but that's all they remember. And you can delete all the tweets where you were wrong. That's also key. If you want to look like a genius, make crazy predictions, just delete the tweets where you're wrong. But no, I thought we were going to I was wrong because I thought Ava Raine would join the Bloodline, and then we have Bloodline versus Judgment Day, so Ava could go toe-to-toe with Rhea Ripley. That ain't happening. So we'll see. It's interesting. Joycey Collins, pardon me, Joycey, saying she needs to be on her own and not go to the Bloodline. We'll see. Sometimes there's strength in numbers. But we had Otis with Alpha Academy versus Drew Gulak with Charlie Dempsey, Damon Kemp, and Miles Bourne. And this was a fun match. Everybody loves Otis and the Caterpillar. It's like Scotty Too Hottie, which is weird. Isn't that weird that that's like a nostalgia thing now? That was like 21, 22 years ago. That's kind of crazy to think about. Scotty Too Hottie and the Worm was so long ago. But Otis, this was a fun match. Otis can actually wrestle. It's unfortunate that he's had some unfortunate gimmicks. What he's doing now is better. It works. People like it. It's fine. The worst was when he had the Money in the Bank briefcase and he had a ham sandwich in it, and the Miz took him to court to win the Money in the Bank briefcase. That was just dumb. Mandy Rose storyline that was gold, and it seems like he's doing well with the Alpha Academy. So after he won, speaking of silly, Alpha Academy had a dance party in the ring. Does anyone remember American Alpha? Remember how cool American Alpha was? Jason Jordan and Chad Gable, Reddy, Willing, and Gable. They ruled NXT. Remember the great match they put on with the Revival? Fantastic. And now Chad Gable saying shush, shush. It's fine. Good for them. They're still on the roster. They've survived rounds of cuts. Chad Gable can still wrestle better than most wrestlers. Otis is fun. It was good. This was the big moment. We went to Chase University where representatives of the family, including a female member of the family that we saw for the first time, handed an envelope, said, hey, this is for Andre Chase, and JC Jane, you lovable scamp, opened the envelope, looked inside, was shocked. You could see her shocked face. She was like, what? And there's some dirt now. We kind of know what that, we're building up to reveal about what was going on with that meeting with Chase U and the family before their match where Chase U won those tag titles. So Andre Chase comes in, snatches the envelope from JC Jane's hand. Duke Hudson and Thea Hale walk in, ask what was going on. Jane changes the subject quickly and informed Hudson that he and Andre Chase will be defending those NXT Tag Team Championship titles against the family next week. Chase then dismissed the rest of the class. Hudson left with Hale. Jane followed them and Chase stood there deeply contemplating something. Yes. Joycey Collins, we better find out. Joycey Collins wants to know what's in it. This better not be like Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon safe all over again. We better find out what's in that envelope. But stay tuned. Dijak versus Tyler Bate. Oh my God, this was a hard-hitting bell-to-bell banger tonight. Qualifier for the Iron Survivor Challenge. And this was good. I like that they're still giving these guys a push. It's interesting that they've both been in the upper mid card of NXT. And it was a good match. They really showed what they could do. I think it's interesting that the Dijak won and Hard Justice is coming to the Iron Survivor Challenge in the men's match. So this was a really good match. This was our main event match tonight before our actual main event segment that went in the overrun, but it was really good. And I like that Alicia A says her wrong answer for what's in the envelope is the results are you are the father. That would be amazing if Andre Chase is like Thea Hale's father. That actually make a lot of sense. Baby Ice, though, I think this is what it is. Andre Chase took out a loan to keep Chase U open, and he has to pay Tony D back now, and perhaps that's why he's getting the rematch. Oh, yes, and as G Nails is pointing out, the Brawling Brutes had a vignette talking about walking the mean streets of Europe in response to Out the Mud, and saying that, they might be from overseas, but they could still throw down. They're still tough. So this will be an interesting feud that I'm pretty sure Out the Mud's going to win. But this was a good vignette. I like how the Brawling Brutes kind of go back and forth between the main roster and NXT. And of course, Pete Dunne, Butch will forever be a favorite in NXT. So let's talk though about the real segment that everyone is talking about. By everyone, I mean the NXT and WWE universe. Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams came face to face. Trick Williams talked about being attacked, which kept him out of a championship qualifier a few weeks back. And it's very interesting the way Carmelo Hayes looked at Trick Williams, and Trick was basically asking, hey, were you the one who attacked me? And Carmelo asked a lot of questions. Like, oh, so you didn't see the person, but you saw me after you were attacked, kind of lawyering him a little bit. It was very interesting. They're going to stretch this out for so long, and then to further add fuel to the potential fire that's going on here, Lexis King, America's sweetheart, America's bad boy. His West Coast Popcast is saying he's ready for the CW with that promo. Lexis King came out to suggest maybe he had something to do with it, or maybe suggest to Trick that, hey, Carmelo had something to do with it. He wanted to have it both ways, but what's very interesting is that Trick Williams got so frustrated with this and then went to hit Lexis King. They kind of screwed up the stage choreography of the camera angle there, because it was clear that it was clear that he was aiming for Carmelo. It was supposed to be that he was aiming for Lexis and missed, but he hit Carmelo. And Carmelo rejected his hand when Trick tried to pick him back up. Lexis King just stood out of the ring, like smiling at the chaos he'd caused. Ultimately, Carmelo did let Trick lift him up. But now we're in this situation where Carmelo and Trick are maybe okay. Maybe Lexis King did it. Quite a cliffhanger to end on. A lot of people I found, though, and I'm curious what the chat room thinks. I feel like Lexis King is been not polarizing as a character or a concept, because people like this idea of Brian Pillman Jr. doing something truly unique and truly different. I think we're all on the same page with the vignettes and the promos we saw leading up to his debut. But this execution seems to be polarizing people a little bit. Some people really like the way Lexis King is talking, carrying himself in this sort of hotshot, trouble stirring, devil may care attitude he has. I think that it's good, but even as Corey Pride is saying, Corey says, I love both Mel and Trick. This is so good, but Lexis King was unnecessary, but I was glad to see him. I feel very conflicted about Alexis King. Like, I like the concept, but I think the execution so far has just not been as good as it could be. Perhaps, less equals more. I like what he did last week, where he was hitting on the reporter backstage and she just couldn't get out of there fast enough. I think, they're finding his character, but look, this is a guy. I mean, think about where Brian Pillman Jr. was in AEW. like the top of the lower card, bottom of the mid card. And they're bringing him into the hottest storyline in NXT right now. This because they're bringing him in with Mello and Trick. And as Joycey Collins is saying, now think the King has something or he knows something. I mean, perhaps he could have done it. He could know who did it. You know what I want to know? Where's NXT Anonymous? Shouldn't they have video of the attack? Shouldn't they? I mean, they're probably going to be the ones that reveal the whole thing, like in 3 weeks, right before deadline to set something up. But NXT Anonymous, where are they when you need them? And why isn't Scripps with his voice changer and mask in the shadows, uncovering the truth, trying to bring down NXT? Baby I saying Lexis King is just starting out. I say stay the course with Lexis. There you go. Julian Floyd. This is a hot prediction. Julian Floyd saying, I think Randy Orton might be working NXT and his first match will be Joe Gacy. That would be incredible. West Coast Popcast saying Lexis King equals a great Corey Feldman character. I mean, there's so many. Would Lexis King be Corey Feldman in Friday the 13th, the final chapter? Would he be Corey Feldman as one of the Frog Brothers and the Lost Boys? Would he be Corey Feldman as Mouth in the Goonies? Would he be Corey Feldman from License to Drive, whose character name is escaping me at the moment? Would he be Corey Feldman from Corey and Corey's Angels, his band that's taken America by storm? Now I must know. Everybody chime in with which Corey Feldman character you think Lexis King is. West Coast Popcast is Corey Feldman from The Burbs. There you go. Oh, Baby Ice saying he's Feldman and Dream a Little Dream. Does he have the dance moves, Baby Ice? That's what I want to know. Everybody get your questions in because we're now that I don't have a co-host to ask their opinion of tonight, let me get your questions and your thoughts. Let's take a little time here at the end of our NXT wrap up. Corey Pride saying all Corys are great. That's spoken like a true Corey. Bernie DC is saying, I like that Pillman had to go through some of the talents that are trained enough and do enhancements and really build into that first program. I think, it's got to be a mix of matches and promos, but man, that match he had against Dante Chen was super duper competitive. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I think Lexis King, though, much like Braun Breaker, I think Lexis King is going to be an NXT champion sooner rather than later. We're clearly very high on him. Okay, pardon me there. So, if anyone has any questions, anything they want to talk about, and I want to just take this moment. Let me babyface it up here for a second. Again, this is my first night doing it solo. I appreciate you hanging in. I'm sure some of the comments are just going to be crazy tonight. I know a lot of you, everyone has their favorite host. Some people love Issa, some people love Flobo, some people love Jack, Jimmy, Justin. I get it. I know how it is. We all have our favorites. I've been doing this show 7 years now. Can you believe that? Over 7 years. I started in the summer of 2016, right before SmackDown went to live shows and they did the draft. Originally, I did the podcast with David Bixenspan and Raj Giri, then Raj Giri and Matt Morgan for a long period of time, and worked with Nick Hausman over the years, Justin LeBar, and then more recently with Alfred Kanawa and Issa. And now Issa and Flobo, and Issa and I are usually alone on Tuesdays. We work with Flobo on Fridays typically. And I just got to say, as a kid, I used to sit in my bedroom and play radio, which would literally be like when you see that Family Guy clip of Stewie talking to his stuffed animals, pretending he's on the air. And I have to say that I've done actual radio before. I've been very blessed to work in a variety of broadcast roles, journalism. I've done a lot of things in my career. And I have to say that it's like doing this podcast has been the single most fun thing I think I've ever done in my career, because not only do I get to have conversations with interesting people, I get to interview people that I admire and find interesting, but I love this community that we've built up in the Wrestling Inc. podcast. So when I see the same names week in and week out, and the fact that you all make part of your NXT viewing experience and a SmackDown viewing experience, coming and hanging out with us after, whether you hang out live when we do this or you watch it on delay, that's really awesome. And it means a lot to me. And believe me, there are times, my love affair with wrestling has had a lot of breaks over the course of my 47 years on this earth. And I think in the last 7 years doing this show, every time that I might feel a little underwhelmed by the product, a little less passionate about what I'm watching, being able to hang out with all of you and know that this is a little community and family that we've built here with Wrestling Inc. For me, that's really what keeps me excited about doing this week in and week out, to not only spend time with my co-hosts, but to spend time with you all, the audience. So I just want to thank you for coming out. And Cisco 323 LA, thank you so much for your love of me and Raj and Matt. And, we're together again on Gigantic Pop on YouTube talking about pop culture. And I couldn't pick a favorite co-host. I mean, with Issa originally started out as part of this audience and was interacting, and then Matt and I were doing an after show on the stereo platform. We liked Issa's attitude, and we invited her to be a guest, and then quickly she became a co-host, and now she's one of my best friends. So it's very funny how things work out in this world, right? I mean, it's just kind of crazy, and I'm very grateful and thankful and just humbled by all the support and encouragement and love that we get from you all week in and week out. So thank you so much for all your support. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, anything you want to know, we've got time tonight. So I would, love to just hang out with you all. And I'm glad that you're all here. It's very exciting to kind of think about where we're at with wrestling now that rights deals are coming up, that ratings, they ebb and they flow. But I feel like wrestling still gets hotter and hotter. What's changed, though, is that people don't feel the need to watch it every week because there are podcasts like this. There's social media. There's all these different ways to interact with the content. You don't have to tune in live to stay up to date on wrestling. So Beer Money has an interesting question. Who are the top 3 NXT talents that could go to the main roster tomorrow, and 3 main roster talents who could flourish in NXT like Corbin? Well, going to the main roster, I mean, look, Braun Breaker is overdue, right? I think we all agree on that. And I would say Carmelo Hayes as well, except we got to have that storyline with Trick. It's too hot to leave NXT without them having a one-on-one feud. But the other one that I think is, I'll give you 2 more that I think are ready. I think Tony D and Stacks could very well go to the main roster. And I'll say Tiffany Stratton. I think Tiffany Stratton, even though her championship reign was maybe not everything some of us hoped it could be in NXT, I think her character could work very well on the main roster. I don't know that she would be in the championship picture immediately, but I think there was a void for that sort of character. I think Tiffany Stratton would do very well on the main roster. And I think she'll be there sooner rather than later, which in fact, I think that's part of the reason why she's not the women's champion anymore. I think she's going to move up sooner rather than later. Beer Money asked for 3 main roster talents who could flourish in NXT like Baron Corbin. It's interesting because you almost need somebody that's not being used to their full potential. But that being said, if Becky Lynch can come to NXT and have, a 6-week run, I think anything is possible, right? I mean, the question is that you need someone who they aren't using at the moment, and that's what makes it a bit of a challenge, even in thinking about it, because the unfortunate thing is that when you're out of sight, you're out of mind a lot of the time. But looking at the roster right now, it's interesting to think about who could be sent back down and really have something interesting happen with them. So yeah, let's look at it. I mean, I think that AJ Styles has been taking some time off. It would be interesting. I know he's done some things in NXT, but I think it would be interesting to have him get a little more experience there. Wait a second. This is interesting. No, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Pardon me, folks. I think that looking at the current talents, Karrion Kross would be a pick because we've heard some stuff that hasn't really worked out with him getting a repackaging or repush on the main roster. So I think that could be interesting. Tamina's still on the SmackDown roster. I was not aware of that. That's interesting. Let me look at Raw. But yeah, I think Karrion Kross would be a pick that I would have to go back down to NXT for a bit. It would be interesting to see actually, what's really funny? There's not a lot of talent that's not being used currently. See, I thought I was going to look at this and be like, oh, there's this person and this person and this person, but it seems like they're actually doing a decent job of utilizing everyone. I mean, I would pop like crazy to see Sami Zayn back in NXT, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, right? Just doesn't make sense. Beer Money saying if the Miz hadn't a push, I would say, I mean, the Miz in NXT for an extended period of time would be amazing. Ricky Zaldavio, thank you so much for saying I'm your favorite host. I appreciate that. That's really, really nice of you. I appreciate that. And Beer Money is this thing. I think Roxanne could go up to the main roster. Bernie DC saying Blair Davenport could get that post-Mania move up. Look, I'm just going to say this about Blair Davenport. Blair Davenport was the parking lot attacker. Blair Davenport has to stay in NXT until Nikita Lyons and Wendy Chu and Sol Ruka come back and beat the crap out of her. That has to happen. That has to happen, right? That's the payoff of all payoffs. I don't know. Okay. Well, hey guys, this has been a trip. This has been a journey. This has been an experience. Thank you all for hanging with me tonight. I think Friday it's going to be me and Issa, maybe Flobo too. Then we'll be back to normal. I think that though, this was a good reminder tonight. In the past, we have had Wrestling Inc. nights where another co-host wasn't available, and I was like, I don't want to do the podcast alone. But seeing that, hundreds of you have turned out tonight to watch this live, you stayed with, you're commenting, you're chatting, you're participating. I think you all have changed my mind tonight. And in the future, even without a co-host, the show must go on. And we will keep doing this because I know how important this sense of community and this coverage of NXT is for everyone. So, hey, everybody, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Please be kind. This was definitely new tonight. And yeah, everybody, I'm sure I'll get more comfortable with it when I do it alone the next time. But cool. Everybody, have a good night. Have a good week. And tomorrow night, tune in for AEW coverage. We'll see you back here next time on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.